When you're working with proofs that involve parallel lines, it's important to work in the order of the things that you're given. So notice, I'm given something about the angles, and I'm going to make a conclusion about the parallel lines. So that tells me a lot about the way in which I'm going to write my argument, and I'm going to write my reasons. So knowing that alternate interior angles are congruent, like angle 1 and 2, my conclusion is to make A parallel to B, to make that argument. So I'm going to start with angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. That's the given. So I can't use this theorem about alternate interior angles congruent giving me parallel lines. I actually want to show that this is a true theorem, a true relationship. So what that means is I have to use a different angle pair in order to justify this proof. And the key up here is to notice that angle 2 and 3 are vertical angles. Those are congruent to one another. So I can say that angle 2 is congruent to angle 3. That's the vertical angle theorem. So now I have two angle relationships that I can connect together. Angle 1 is congruent to angle 2, but then I also know that starting at angle 2, that's congruent to angle 3. So I can connect these two relationships together and say that angle 1 is congruent straight to angle 3. So that's the transitive property. Now, if you look carefully in the figure then, angle 1 and angle 3, those are a pair of corresponding angles that are congruent. And we have a postulate or a relationship that we didn't need to prove. If those corresponding angles are congruent, that gives me parallel lines, A and B. So I'm ready to write my proof statement. My proof statement is that A is parallel to B. So notice my reason, and my proof is over, that reason is really written for me by looking at step 3 and then step 4. Step 3, that statement has corresponding angles in it which are congruent, that's angles 1 and 3, and that leads me to conclude that I have a pair of parallel lines. So corresponding angles congruent, that's angles 1 and 3, that leads me to parallel lines. And now we're done. So it is true, starting with two alternate interior angles like 1 and 2, knowing that those are congruent, that's good enough now to conclude that we have parallel lines.